Good morning, Carley. Good morning, everyone tuning in. We're Facebook Live for the first time, which is a bit exciting for us. We do lots of webinars, but we wanted to jump on today to address, a topic, a big topic, one that we felt is best addressed in this conversation. And just to put it in some context, last Friday, I posted on our page about a new documentary here in Australia that got released called The Children in the Pictures. And it had huge traction, our post, in terms of sharing what is now a really challenging issue and a risk for our young people online, and that's child exploitation material, particularly highlighting how now the ability for perpetrators to have young children not in physical contact, but generating user-generated or explicit material, child abuse material from the comfort of the child's home. And also perpetrators around the globe. So it's a big topic, but what we really wanted to do was not leave parents with just that information and that alarming sort of issue. We wanted to unpack it some more. And as promised in that post, Carley today is joining me, and we're going to talk some really practical ideas and some things that you and your home can do to better keep your kids safe in this area. So a little intro, if you're not aware of Carley and I, we are Inform and Empower. My background is primary school teaching. Carley's is as a psychologist. So without further ado, I guess, Carley, the reason we actually chose to do a Facebook Live, interestingly, sharing with everyone, I know you this morning and last night set out to make some videos that we would share, and you said to me, I can't quite get them right, yep. And what we thought, let's play out what we are going to suggest to you today as parents. It doesn't have to be perfect. So we're going to have a conversation now, and Carley's going to share her insights in this space. It's not a definitive guide in the next 15, 20 minutes with you, but it's opening up and starting this tricky conversation with our kids. Because, Carley, I know you hear this a fair bit, is that's the reason a lot of parents don't tackle these topics, is that it's, they won't get it quite right, or they won't get it perfect, or where do I even start?
Yep, absolutely. So parents are often aware that there's an issue. They feel pressure and sometimes guilt that they haven't had that conversations, but they worry about, what if I say the wrong thing? What if I use the wrong word? What if I give them too much information? And also there's another layer to that where it's about parents getting concerned that I suppose I want to protect my innocence of my child. I don't want to bring this sort of thing into their minds. I don't want to tell them things that they don't need to know. I want to keep them young and innocent. And for us and other people that work in this area, we know that kids having information empowers them to make healthier, safer choices. And that information comes so much from our conversations as parents with our kids, taking up those teachable moments as life chucks our way to talk about all sorts of things. Yes.
Okay, so let's get started with some really practical things. And I want to start with a topic we often discuss, is that the evidence suggests and is very clear, in fact, that when kids have issues online, and whether it is around dealing with this topic of grooming online or getting themselves into a situation that's really uncomfortable or difficult, it might even be amongst their peers. What we know, fact is, majority of kids will not turn and ask advice from a trusted adult, teacher, parent, carer. And that's a problem. When little people not developmentally ready are stuck dealing with these by themselves, that's when these escalate. So over to you, Carley, to share, number one, why aren't our kids talking with trusted adults? And what can, more importantly, what can parents and carers be doing to help open up that possibility that they will talk?
Yep. So as Marty said, the evidence is very clear, but also in my work with children and young people, I hear from them directly about these exact reasons why they won't speak up, why they won't come to us trusted adults often. And there's three main reasons. Number one, they don't think we can help. They think we're not tech savvy, we're clueless, we'll make it worse, we can't help. Number two is probably one of the biggest ones, and kids are worried about disappointing us. They're worried about the fact that they've made a really poor choice, and what if we don't love them because of that? And number three, it's about kids, I guess, It's about them fearing that we're going to digitally amputate them, take away a device, cut off their internet access as a result of them coming to us. And often parents, particularly limiter parents that are very anxious, might resort to, that's it. I told you Snapchat was bad. But what they miss out in that moment is taking up that teachable moment to be able to have a conversation. So the 3 things that you can talk to your kids about, if you've already talked about these things, and it's about continuing and reinforcing these messages. If you haven't had these conversations, the 3 things. Number 1, even if you're not tech savvy, my kids know, they remind me frequently that I'm not tech savvy. I'm somewhat tech clueless, but I am resourced. There's not a problem online that I can't get sorted with some support. So reinforcing that message to your kids. Number 2, letting your kids know that you love them. And you might be thinking, yeah, great, Carley. Of course, my kids already know that. But when it comes to the crunch, and I hear this from kids and young people, they doubt that. They're so wanting, and talking to a client yesterday about, even now she's 23, wanting the approval of her dad, not wanting to let him know that she's stuffed up. So it's about letting our kids know that we know they're going to make mistakes. Mistakes are expected, and that we can support them with any mistake, and nothing they do will stop us loving them. And then number 3, reassuring them clearly that we will not just respond to a problem online by cutting them off from all things digital. So they're those 3 main things, Marty.
Excellent. And I might share that little graphic because they are so important on our page as well, about what are those 3 things to keep telling our young people. Okay, moving along to the bigger picture of these conversations that we're going to unpack today. What age? Like, often that's the question, how old? We work with primary schools a lot. Do we wait to the end, middle, beginning? What's your advice for parents around when to start these conversations?
Yep. So really good question that I get asked all the time. When exactly should I talk about this? What if my kid's not ready for that? Number 1, you need to know, and you've probably already seen this happen before, kids will only take in at the time what they need to know. And that might be a kid going, blah, 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 enough, I don't want to hear any more. And that's their way of saying they've got enough information at that time, or they just let it go by them. So don't be too caught up in thinking, I don't want to say too much. But as for what age, it literally starts from day dot. So when you've got a 2-year-old and they're first learning their language and words and vocabulary around body parts and using all the correct terminology. So it starts from that place all the way up into more specific, direct, explicit conversations with our teenagers. An awesome resource that you may have heard me mention before, Talking the Talk, Vanessa Hamilton. She's a Melbourne-based sexuality educator. She's a mum with a nursing background, and she's got some great resources online, podcast, actual scripts that you can print out in relation to those conversations, all things sexuality, which, as Vanessa says, we're not just talking about sex. When we say sexuality, it's body parts, it's consent, it's privacy, body image, all of those things, and how you might have those conversations with your children, because them being informed of it, as I said earlier, actually empowers them and better protects them to manage when they're in a challenging situation.
Well, yeah, you mentioned consent there. I think continuing on that, it's been such a buzzword over the last sort of 18 months, and rightfully so. It's got some great sort of, it's been put out there in the public domain, and our young people, consent is so related to minimising risk with young people online, is empowering them with content around consent and conversations. What are some things parents can consider around that consent conversation, which I know we could talk about that for hours, I'm sure you could, but in a nutshell?
Yeah. Okay. So back to that idea of starting with a 2-year-old learning about body parts. From there, you're building on those public body parts, those private body parts. We're talking about your personal space. We're talking about all those different topics that build into those ideas around consent, and that you're in charge of your body. And when I was thinking about doing this video today, I remembered back, like, my kids now are almost 10, 13, 15. but we had this awesome book called Everyone Has a Bottom, and it's brilliant. Strongly recommend. It's an awesome picture book that you could start reading with your 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, or even older. And one of the catchphrases in that book that we loved as a family, from my head to my toes, I say what goes. So meaning no one has consent. No one's allowed to do anything or touch body parts of yours without your permission, without your say so. So an awesome resource there. And again, with consent, when kids are little. So for example, if you take a photo of them, rather than just sending that off to whoever, friends, family, or wherever, asking, are you okay if I share this photo with Nanny? Are you okay if I send it to Uncle Marty? And if they say no, as much as you might want to, it's about respecting those boundaries. Or one thing that's a bit of a bugbear for me, sometimes I want to take a photo of the kids because what they're doing, I want to capture that moment, or I think it's funny or cute. But if they say no, I don't want a photo, it's about us respecting that, because we're building that idea that it's appropriate and it's part of being in a healthy relationship, that you check in with the other person, you get consent rather than just doing what you want when you want.
Okay.
Speaking of consent, can I jump in with one more resource I was just thinking of? There's a new resource that I stumbled across, and I've got my little copy here, Welcome to Consent. It's a great book. These resources that I mentioned today, we'll put the details of those in the video info below, so you can, catch what was that book she mentioned. But it's a really good book for primary school age kids in the whole holistic picture, conversations, ideas all around consent. And it's in a really user-friendly, accessible way that you can chat through it, read through it. Kids might read it on their own, depends on their age and where you're up to with those conversations.
Awesome. I'll drop that link on the video description. Related to consent, and everything we're talking today is really empowering our kids to be both safe and thriving in that online space. It's one that I must say, when you first shared this with me, surprised me a little about how teaching our kids manners and respect for other people, how that can even be one of the challenges that bring kids unstuck. So do you want to unpack that a little bit more, how good manners can actually at times be something you need to address?
Yeah, this is really important. And it came out in a conversation with one of my clients yesterday who's in her 20s. And I'll share that little example of what the fallout is if we don't do this work earlier to give kids these messages. So I get it. Teaching our kids to use good manners and be respectful when they're relating to other people makes perfect sense, of course. However, we need to give kids our message that manners and respect are appropriate, except when, if you're dealing with an unsafe person or an unsafe situation, then you can do whatever you need to do. You can say whatever you need to say to be safe. So being safe trumps good manners and trumps being respectful. So even like if you think about our culture and society, maybe a little bit less so nowadays compared to back in the day when we were growing up, but it's still a very, very strong message about you need to be respectful to your elders, you need to be respectful to your teachers, you need to be, which again, we need that sort of little caveat in there that if it comes to a situation, even if it's a teacher, even if it's someone online that, a footy coach person, anybody, if you feel unsafe, if it's an unsafe situation, then manners and respect go out the window and you can do and say what you want. And back to that consent topic that I was talking about for example, when little kids, say you're meeting someone and forcing them to give that person a hug or a kiss, or forcing them to interact in a way that's not, that they're not comfortable with, goes against that idea of consent. And you're also asking your kids to disregard their feelings. So them not feeling comfortable in that moment to give so-and-so a hug, needs to be respected. So my example with the client yesterday, she's in her 20s. She was in a work meeting, and this particular meeting was not a healthy situation. She was quite upset at the time, and part of her wanted to leave, but she didn't. For 20 minutes, she stayed in that meeting. And the reasons were because she told herself the story that the boss was there, so an authority figure, and she wanted to be professional, respectful, manners, when really, as we unpack that situation, what she didn't do was respect her need to feel safe. And that would have looked like her saying, I'm sorry, I'm going to need to pause the meeting here. I need to leave, and we might need to come back to this tomorrow. Say anything to remove herself from what was a really unsafe, unhealthy situation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and probably related to that is a topic that I like. Identifying those unsafe situations comes a topic that I am working with kids in schools constantly, and I know there's lots of work in schools done with this, but it needs to be supported from parent and carer conversation around those feelings that kids have and trusting those. Sometimes we call them early warning signs or your body's indicators, but tuning kids into those, because that's the clue that they then have that it is an unsafe situation. They hear it first from their body. How do you unpack that idea with kids?
Again, so important. I cannot stress this. Working for 20 years with children, young people and families, I worked in child protection, the Department of Human Services. So working with young people that have been exploited, that have suffered abuse, and the fallout and the trauma from that. And I guess what's important is for kids to learn from early on to trust their instincts. And as Marty said, that early warning signs, their body indicators, their knowing, their gut instinct, their feeling, whatever words you want to use, and using a variety of words is always a good thing, but it's describing those things, when you're in a yucky situation, when you get that funny feeling, those butterflies, you might get a bit shaky, a bit sweaty, a bit flushed, your body gives signals that the situation is not okay and not safe. And when kids become aware of that, then they're allowed to, giving them permission to act on that and make a decision to get themselves safe. But step one is being aware of those signs. So it could be as simple as when you're out and about with your 3 or 4-year-old or your, school age kid, and you meet a new person. When you walk away from that situation, it could just be reflecting on, what did you think? What did you feel? What did you notice? What was your vibe? I often use that word. What was the energy is another word I use with my kids. What was the energy around that person? And you get a very clear message. If you pause to tune in, you get that, and getting kids to practice doing that when you're there in situations where there's that safety, and being able to unpack something is really important. I think that answers what we were talking about.
Those early warning signs. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
And I'm just getting my puppy dog strolling on, about to make a cameo, as she does at times. We've got some people live, which is awesome. We did only put this event up this morning, a couple of hours out, so we really much wanted to have the conversation. Lots of people will be watching this in their own time, but we have got some people. So fantastic to have our audience tuning in live. The next one I wanted to tackle with you, Carley, is this whole idea of online. There are unsafe people, there's safe people, there's unsafe people. But what's this sort of language, and how do we talk to kids about, for lack of a better word, the baddies online? Because it's something we can't ignore. This whole conversation is about having our kids safe, and part of that is making them aware that there are safe and unsafe people, safe and unsafe situations.
So the reality is, as Marty said at the start, that, that children in the pictures movie is talking about perpetrators online in relation to child abuse and child exploitation material, but clearly not the language you're going to use with a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old. So it is about using language around safe people, unsafe people, trusted people. And kindergartens and schools are great with, usually they do that safety hand where you're looking at kids identifying 5 safe, trusted people that they can go to. And usually on that, you're wanting to build outside the family options is ideal as well, because if for some reason parents aren't accessible, or parents are not a safe or trusted person to go to for whatever that reason is, then kids having other options. Now, kids, you'll laugh, you'll know this if you've done it with your kids, they'll often put pets and all sorts of things, and all good to have a pet on there, as long as there's certainly some other talking adult trusted people on there as well. But bless kids for seeing pets as a safety and a comfort. So it's using that language. And then you might use language around bullies as well, for example, people that might bully. And then with older kids, I know with my older teens, I said to my kids, I'm doing a Facebook Live for the first time today as I was dropping them to school. And what are you talking about? And I said, well, perpetrators online. So they're at an age where they know what that means. So you can use that language with older kids, but with little kids, safe and unsafe people. And one of the things I've done with my kids when they were younger as a way of being clear about that in a tricky moment, say, for example, and this is more of an offline thing, but a code word, having a code word. But this could apply to an online situation, that if that trusted adult is trying to be tricky, if they don't know the family code word, then you haven't given consent for it. So there's these unsafe people, these untrustworthy people. The perpetrators online will use a variety of strategies to groom children and to elicit that child abuse, child exploitation material. So they will blatantly lie, they will trick, they will bribe, they will threaten, guilt, they will shame. Back to that shame and guilt. When I said at the start, 3 things that get in the way of kids of coming to us when there's a problem online. That one about they don't want to disappoint us. They don't want, that their parents might stop loving them. Perpetrators, sadly, are well aware of that, and they will target that vulnerability directly by saying, you, by sending me that picture, have done a very bad thing, and your mum and your dad, they will not love you. The police will probably do this. They'll lie and make up things. So back to that idea of talking to your kids about trusted people, and that if they don't know that code word, then there's no way you said it was okay for them to send a picture online. So your kid might say, oh, do you know our family code word? I'm thinking, did mum really say that? That might be a way that you check in with that.
Well, related to, and we're talking about, and coming from the documentary, the children in the pictures, they talk about how the network of people online who have the same intent to abuse and exploit children share strategies. Unfortunately, this is the reality we're dealing with. So they are very versed in getting what they want, which means we need to up our game from the other end. Unfortunately, this is what we are discussing today. And one of those strategies, for lack of a better word, is talking about secrets. So somebody your child might be communicating with online might talk about, our relationship's a secret. How and again, kids might have that belief that, we keep secrets because secrets are something between people that we don't share, and having respect. So can you unpack how you'd have that secrets conversation with kids?
Yeah, so secrets, I guess, sort of builds on from that idea of those early warning signs. So there are happy, fun, feel-good secrets, like, don't tell what we've bought mum for her birthday present secret. But if there's a secret that doesn't make you feel good, if there's a secret that sets off those early warning triggers, and second to that, never secrets about touching and body parts. There should never be secrets kept about touching and body parts. So being really explicit and clear about that and having those conversations about it. One thing I was thinking just to share with you is a couple of the ways how, my kids, as I said, nearly 10, 13 and 15. How have I had these conversations over the years? Number one, there's been a million billion different little conversations. As Marty said at the start, there is no way I perfectly did any of these conversations. There were 100% moments where I said, wow, that's a really good question. That's really important. I need to think about the answer to that. And I want to talk about later when we've got privacy. So I can remember one of my kids asking me, what is rape? And little Miss Sister at the time, not appropriate discussion for her. So don't feel like you have to answer something there and on the spot. Give yourself that time, pause. Thank you for asking that question. I'm so glad you did. And I'm going to come back to you later and we're going to have a chat about that. But back to how did I have some of the conversations? They might be things like we used to do, one of my favorite things was, and the kids loved it when they were younger, and it was a great way of having these conversations in a way that wasn't scary or confronting. We played the what if game. So it would go like this. Okay, let me test your brain and test your knowing and your instincts. I want to see how you would manage this. What if you were, so if we think of an online example, what if you were online and someone said to me, can you send me a photo of your bedroom? What would you do? How would you feel about that? And really checking in with them. And the point of giving them all these hypothetical what ifs is, number one, to check in with what they already know and understand and where they're at. What's their skill set? Where's it already at? But number two, it's about giving information and saying, I wonder if you said this, or do you know what you could do? You could say to them, oh, I need to go to the toilet, and then you can run out and let me know. Now, number one, I need to say no kids in primary school with devices in bedrooms. So I'm not suggesting that you've got a kid in a bedroom on a device on their own. But does that make sense? So it's about using all these hypotheticals to check in with them. The other one I've used a lot is, okay, I read about, through my work, I read about this situation. There was a 13-year-old boy. He took a nude photo, and shared it with his girlfriend. And then do you know what happened? And then I share the story. And that's a way of saying to them and flagging, wow, there's bigger implications of sending just a nude photo, for example. I've gone on and on and on. I hope that's all makes sense.
Yeah, and another resource, just while we're talking about the explicit image sharing, and once again, that's a whole nother topic in itself, one that we do recommend, particularly for all parents, full stop, but one that might be used in some conversations with secondary school age, depending on your child, of course, is The Hunting. It's on SBS. It's an Australian series, well worth watching yourself as an adult, but then also using that with older children too. As Carley said, have like a third party in the conversation. So it's not, as Carley jokes, that no teenager loves to be sat down eyeball to eyeball to say, hey, let's talk about nudes. It gives that third party. Okay, something else I wanted to touch on, Carley, and you've mentioned this previously in conversations we've had about dobbing, and how that's often a thing that kids have this mindset. And I know as a teacher, you sometimes talk about, oh, we don't dob, or that language around dobbing sometimes plants a seed with kids that it's not okay to tell on someone else.
Yep. So I guess the work you're doing is wanting to remove any barriers that will get in the way of of any child or young person speaking up when they've got a problem online. And one of the barriers that I know, and I hear from kids, and I'll share an example with one of my own kids where this came into it, is that dobbing and telling. So just to be clear, letting kids know that if there's ever an unsafe situation, if there's ever those unsafe feelings, unsafe person, early warning signs, then you can always speak up. And Holly Ann Martin, who does some remarkable work around the country in relation to children and protective behaviours, and all sorts of courses and resources for communities. One of her catchphrases that I love, and I saw it on some T-shirts with some children that she was working with, you can tell anything to someone. And that's brilliant. So back to the dobbing and telling. I guess that's about, so the example with my daughter was, she was at school in the playground, and she told me about this situation where her and her friends saw a man on a balcony of a neighbouring house videoing. It appeared like he was videoing them. She described it as feeling creepy, feeling yucky. Her early warning signs were telling her something was just not okay about it. And I said to her, did you let the principal know at the time, or a teacher? And she said, no, because I didn't want to dob on the man and get him in trouble. What if he wasn't doing anything dodgy or bad? So the conversation we had around that is always. And as soon as I started to say it, she's like, trust your instincts, because we've had a few of these conversations. Trust your instincts. Tell a trusted adult, then it's their responsibility. And if that man wasn't doing anything wrong, that's okay. The principal will handle that with him, but it's not your responsibility. It's up to a trusted adult to manage that maybe unsafe situation. Your job is just to always respect and tune in to those early warning signs, your instincts, because of that remarkable knowing that all of us human beings have within us if we pause to tune in.
Excellent. Now, I know you and I chatted, we should 15, 20 minutes, but I think it's testament to how big this topic is, that you can't just crunch it into bite-sized 5-10 minute. We're up to, I think, half an hour. So, but the beauty is people can rewind, they can tune out. They're not listening now. They're not hearing me. So the last couple of things we will cover, which are crucial as well, is that we've touched on a little bit with photo sharing, talking about the hunting being for secondary schools and opening up those dialogues, and probably crosses over with consent. But photo sharing is so prevalent now in lots of formats, the good, the bad, and the ugly of it. What are some of those little early conversations we can start with kids about photos of themselves and photos of the family?
Yep. So, and I know, one of the things Marty talks to kids about, that idea, and we talk in our parent sessions about building that idea that the internet and being online is public and possibly permanent. Those two P's, public and possibly permanent. So we're wanting to grow in our kids an awareness that choosing to share a photo needs to be an active, mindful decision, not just do it, because there's implications. And as Marty said, the hunting's one of those examples of sharing a nude picture, for example. So when kids are little, it's just about, as I said, checking in with where we choose to put our information, where we choose to put photos, why we're okay to send it here, why we wouldn't send it there, why would we not put a photo online. I was talking to a parent yesterday or the day before about sharing photos of her children in their school uniforms on a public account online, and the risks of perpetrators having access to information about her children, where they live and what school they go to, and all sorts of the grade they're in because of the post information. About that information, building it as they get older and older. And the reality is, just saying to your kids, don't ever send a nude pic, that's not enough. That's a real limiter. Parent, just ban, restrict. We want to talk to kids about, if you chose to send a picture, and let's be honest, that kids send pictures. Young adults I work with send nude pictures to an intimate partner, for example, but just planning to see what might happen. I know with one of my clients, she had sent a nude picture to her partner at the time. That relationship ended. And then after they'd broken up, on her birthday, he posted that publicly. So that's a possibility that you need to consider if you're going to choose to send it. So it's having those conversations rather than just saying, don't do it. Because too many families I've worked with where parents have said, don't do it, the kids have done it, and they're like, what? I told them not to. So it's more about building that awareness of, if you do it, how might you even do it safely, for example? So if you're talking with older teens, that maybe that's what they've already done, maybe that's what they're going to choose to do, how to do it safely where you don't have identifying features like your face. So you're wanting to minimize the risk and harm in a situation.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I think that photo from a little age is something that we're constantly talking about. Schools are addressing it as well. But let's go. Last topic.
Yep.
Pornography. It's a 40-minute 4-hour, 4-day, 4-month, 4-year conversation, pornography and our kids' exposure to it. But unfortunately, it is very much linked and interrelated to this topic today about kids being at risk of online perpetrators, particularly in ways where perpetrators might use pornography to desensitize children, whether the kids have already seen and been exposed to it. So again, as parents, this is one of these tricky conversations that they don't want to have, and have that awkward feeling. But what are some of the practical things we can think about as parents and carers in this pornography space?
Yep. So before I jump into talking about pornography, one thing that I really wanted to say at the start was just how important it is for us as parents to be so, so kind and compassionate to ourselves when we're navigating these conversations. And one of those reasons is because I know most of you listening to this, this conversation between Marty and I, no one will have had these sorts of conversations with you when you were growing up. Particularly the online layer wasn't even a thing, but just in general, did anyone ever talk to you about trusting your instincts and your early warning signs and all those things? So this is a lot of new things to be navigating with your kids, things that you haven't had experience of yourself. So be very, very kind. And in relation to pornography, I can guarantee that nobody talked to you when you were a child about porn. So when we think about pornography, as Marty said, it's another whole topic. What can I give you the guts of it is, number one, it is not something that you can avoid. It's not something that you can wait till secondary school about. Statistically, commonly, kids will first view pornography in primary school when they're of that age, because that may not be in your home or your household, but somewhere. And what we want before they see it, so it's a matter of when they see it, not if, that we want them to have that critical mindset about what they're seeing. And then we also want them to have that comfortableness, more comfortable anyway, to be able to come to us about it, meaning we need to have started those conversations first. And as Vanessa Hamilton from Talking the Talk, as I said to you earlier, great resource, she says, we as parents want to be our children's main sexuality educators. So we want to get in first about this thing. And it's tempting if your kid comes home from school in grade 2 and says, what's porn? What's Pornhub? It's tempting just to say, oh, I don't want to be talking about that. That's disgusting. And we're not discussing that in our family. However, that teachable moment's critical, because otherwise they're going to be collecting up their sexuality information from kids on the playground, or they'll go and Google it or look it up or check in with a peer. So pornography, kids need to understand that it's not accurate, real life, healthy relationships. It's actors. It's depicting violence towards women, all those things about it. And it starts as early as, if you've got a 3-year-old online, then that 3-year-old needs to know that if they see a picture or a video online that sets off those early warning signs, then that's a quick, put the lid down, put it away, and come straight to a trusted adult, because kids of that age need to know that there's adult. You know how we talk to kids about movies that are not appropriate, that word, that there's inappropriate adult content online. And if you come across it, because sometimes it is in a children's game, or it is on YouTube, or it is wherever, that they need to come to us. So it starts there, and then it's all the way up to checking in with what kids already know. Some of you listening will think, surely my grade 4 doesn't know about porn. I wonder if you check in with, have you heard about, adult pictures and adult movies online? Is that something that's been talked about at school? Be pretty surprised. If they say no, that's okay. You can just go with the whole, well, just to be clear, I've probably reminded you before, there's lots of adult content online that's not appropriate or healthy for children to be watching and viewing. So if that topic comes up, just come and check in with me about it. I'm happy to talk about things like that. My son, I remember one of my kids, I reckon he was about 8 or 9. He'd gone to school swimming on the bus, and a kid on the bus who would have been 8 or 9 had told my son, go on Pornhub, look this up, look that up. You can see this, you can see that. because we'd had some of those conversations, came home and said, Mum, guess what? So-and-so told me to look up this, and this. So you're just increasing that likelihood that they will come to you and ask a curious question. And some kids naturally find that way more comfortable. For other kids who don't ask questions, it will just be a matter of maybe you're driving them to school and you say, right, there's something that I need you to know. You may not want to hear this from me. You don't need to answer. You just need to listen to me for a minute. I've got something important to share with you. And then blah, off you go.
Wow. Carley,
Hey.
we've had people in the chat. It's awesome. Holly Ann's jumped in. I see Vanessa are in there. So thank you to those in the chat and a number of others jumping in with a couple of comments. We thank you. We will wrap up because it is, as we said at the beginning, this isn't the finite discussion. We haven't given you the one and only, but hopefully opened up some conversations, because any conversation is better than none. And I know the messaging at the end of the premiere of the Children in the Pictures documentary that sort of started this whole dialogue, the creators of the documentary themselves, and even the member of the Argos task force who investigates this, when they were asked about their biggest piece of advice for families, we've seen all this, what can we be doing? Without a doubt, each one echoed the same message. It's about conversations. It's about opening up the dialogue. So thank you. We hope you found it beneficial. And if you did, please share, tag someone in the video, because like the old adage, it does take a village. And the more parents are discussing this, the more we're hearing this from a range of different perspectives. There's some great educators online to be following. We'll put them in the chat as well. Please share the video, tag someone in it, because we'd love this conversation to continue well beyond today. Thank you, Carley. It wasn't perfect, as we said at the beginning, but it was opening up heaps of valuable conversations.
And can I just say to parents, again, to reiterate, take the pressure off yourself about having the right conversation or having the right words. Just be kind to yourself. Open up, have the conversations. If a conversation goes way off track, that's okay. Just come back to it and have another conversation. So take care of you. Thank you, Marty.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of the day or night whenever you're tuning into the replay, perhaps. Peace, love, and kindness. See you later.
Bye.